God's chosen ones, you have 24 hours. God's final decision drops tonight. Divine, wake up. Could this be the 24-hour warning heaven has been trying to give you? Have you felt that unexplainable urgency in your spirit? That divine restlessness that won't let you sleep? Is it possible that everything in your life has been building to what happens within these next 24 hours? Chosen one, this isn't a coincidence. This is God's 24-hour warning, and it's for you. Right now, pause whatever you're doing, take a deep breath, and understand that finding this message was divinely orchestrated. The Almighty didn't just guide your fingers to click. He's been preparing this moment since before you were born. The clock of heaven is striking midnight, and your name is being called in the courts above. You're not watching this, you're being summoned. Many will miss this sacred window, but something in your spirit recognized it immediately. That's why you're still listening. That's no accident, that's divine recognition. For those who sense this truth resonating in your bones, comment 999 right now, not as a number, but as your spiritual acknowledgement that you understand what's happening. This is your declaration to heaven, and a signal that you're awake and alert to what God is about to do. I need to be absolutely clear. What unfolds in the next 24 hours will impact the next 24 years of your destiny. God's final decision is dropping tonight, and it concerns you specifically. The chains that have held you back, the delays that have frustrated your purpose, the spiritual warfare against your calling, it all breaks within this divine time frame. Look at your life right now, the struggles, the confusion, the sense of being stuck. What if by this time tomorrow, everything looks completely different? What if God has been saving his most powerful move for this exact moment? Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters in the kingdom. If you're feeling that holy trembling in your spirit right now, don't ignore it. Like this video as a statement of faith. Subscribe as your commitment to walking in divine alignment. And stay until the very end. What I'm about to reveal isn't just important, it's essential for navigating what heaven is releasing in the next 24 hours. The countdown has begun. God is not delaying any longer. Your entire life has been preparation for what happens next. Do you feel that inexplicable heaviness in your spirit right now? Have you been waking up at exactly 3 a.m. with your heart pounding? Not from fear, but from something deeper. When was the last time you sensed God was trying to get your attention, yet everything around you was too loud to hear his voice? The spiritual atmosphere has shifted, and heaven's court has opened what prophets are calling the final decision window. For 24 hours, what was sealed is being unsealed. What was hidden is being revealed. What was delayed is suddenly accelerating. You have 24 hours. Not to panic, but to align. This isn't about fear-mongering. This is about divine timing. When God establishes a window, it's not negotiable. It's sovereign. Think of Noah, who had a specific time frame before the flood. Think of Lot, who had mere hours to leave Sodom before judgment fell. Think of Esther, who had a divine appointment that couldn't be rescheduled. Your 24-hour window is just as critical. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. This scripture isn't just beautiful poetry, it's heaven's declaration over your life. You were marked long before you were born, chosen specifically for such a time as this. Your struggles, your delays, your heartbreaks, they weren't random. They were preparation. But preparation for what? For this moment. This 24-hour period where heaven's decisions concerning your next season, your divine assignment, your supernatural breakthrough, are being finalized and sealed. I can feel some of you pulling back, thinking this sounds too dramatic. But ask yourself, why has every major biblical shift happened within specific time frames? Why did Jesus repeatedly say, "My hour has not yet come," until suddenly declaring, "The hour has come"? Because in the spiritual realm, timing isn't flexible, it's fixed. Let me be painfully honest with you. Many of God's chosen ones will miss this window, not because God withheld it, but because they were too distracted to notice it. The enemy's greatest strategy isn't to defeat you, it's to delay you until your window closes. Does that hit a nerve? It should. Look at your life right now, that project you've been putting off, that ministry you know you're called to start, that person you need to forgive, that step of faith you've been avoiding. What if all of heaven is waiting on you to move within these 24 hours? This isn't fear, it's alignment. If you miss this, it won't be God's fault. King David understood this when he wrote in Psalm 32:6, "Therefore let all the faithful pray to you while you may be found. Surely the rising of the mighty waters will not reach them, while you may be found." Let that sink in. There are moments when God makes himself particularly accessible, when the veil between heaven and earth thins, when spiritual decisions carry greater weight. This is one of those moments. I need you to pause right now, take a deep breath, put your hand on your heart and feel it beating. That heartbeat is God's reminder that you're still here, still breathing, still able to respond to his divine timing. The decisions you make in these next 24 hours will echo into eternity. For some of you, this means finally surrendering that addiction you've hidden. For others, it means making that phone call to restore what's broken. For many, it means stepping out in bold faith toward the vision God planted in your heart years ago. I'm not asking you to do something dramatic for the sake of drama. I'm urging you to align with heaven's timeline over your life. Remember the 10 virgins in Matthew 25. 5 were ready when the bridegroom came, 5 weren't. Both groups knew he was coming, but only the prepared ones entered the celebration. The others heard those haunting words, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you." The most dangerous position isn't being lost, it's being almost aligned. Comment, "I'm listening right now." If you feel this message penetrating your spirit, don't just scroll past this divine moment. This isn't about a video going viral. It's about your spirit coming into alignment with heaven's final decision about your next season. The window is open, but it won't stay open forever. These 24 hours aren't just ticking on your earthly clock, they're resonating in eternity. The question isn't whether God is moving. The question is, are you ready to move with him? What if I told you that the heaviest burden you've been carrying was about to be lifted from your shoulders forever? What if the tears you've cried in silence, the nights you've spent wrestling with God, and the painful seasons of isolation were never what you thought they were? Beloved chosen one, your test is over. The trial you've been enduring wasn't a punishment, it was your proving ground. All this time, you thought God had forgotten you, but in reality, he was watching every tear, recording every prayer, and measuring your faithfulness through the fire. Think of Joseph in that Egyptian prison. For years, he sat in darkness, wondering if the dreams God gave him were just cruel illusions. But what looked like abandonment was actually divine preparation. Genesis 50:20 reveals the stunning truth. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. The prison wasn't Joseph's punishment, it was his classroom. And just like Joseph, you've been in heaven's training program, learning lessons in the dark that you'll need in the light. Consider Oprah Winfrey, fired from her first television job, told she was unfit for television. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. Tyler Perry, once homeless and sleeping in his car, now owns one of the largest film studios in America. Harriet Tubman, born into slavery, became one of history's greatest liberators. They all shared one thing in common. They endured the test without understanding it was a test. Can you see it now? The job you lost, the relationship that fell apart, the financial crisis that seemed to come out of nowhere. These weren't random accidents or divine punishment. They were carefully calibrated tests designed to forge something unbreakable within you. Psalm 66:10 declares, "For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. Silver doesn't become pure without fire. And you, precious chosen one, couldn't become who heaven needed without passing through the furnace." But here's the revelation that changes everything. You didn't even realize it, but you've already passed the hardest part. Let that sink deep into your spirit. The test you thought was still in progress has already been graded. The verdict is in, and heaven's declaration over your life is, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You took the test in the dark, not knowing when or how it would end. But tonight, yes, within these next 24 hours, the results drop. The divine decision has been made." Do you remember how David was anointed king, but then spent years running for his life in caves? What seemed like delay was actually development. God wasn't punishing David. He was preparing him to rule with wisdom and compassion. And you, chosen vessel of the Most High, have been undergoing the same royal preparation. For some of you, this test has lasted 7 years. For others, a painful decade or more. You've questioned yourself. You've questioned God. You've wondered if you misunderstood your calling, or if you were ever really chosen at all. But I need you to hear this clearly. Heaven is saying you passed. Now it's time to step up. Think about a graduation ceremony. There's that sacred moment between finishing your final exam and walking across the stage to receive your diploma. That's where you are right now, in those precious hours between completion and coronation. The angels are preparing for your graduation. The robes of authority are being brought out. The crown of favor is being polished. And the Father himself is standing, ready to announce your name before all of heaven. Can you feel that shift in the atmosphere? That's the weight of glory about to rest upon your shoulders. Romans 8:18 reminds us, "Our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us." The pain was temporary, but the glory is eternal. Some of you are thinking, "But nothing feels different. My circumstances haven't changed." Remember, there's always a holy pause between passing the test and receiving the reward. Don't mistake God's precision timing for delay. Hebrews 10:36 urges us, "You need to persevere, so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He has promised." You've already done the will of God by enduring. Now, within these next 24 hours, you will receive what He has promised. The test is over. Your season of proving has ended. Heaven's verdict has been decided. Are you ready for what comes next? Because passing this test doesn't just mean the pain ends, it means your divine assignment begins. The question is no longer, "Will I survive this?" but rather, "Am I prepared for the promotion heaven has ordained?" The time for sitting on the fence is over, chosen one. This is the moment when God is separating those who merely listen from those who will actually move. In these next 24 hours, heaven is requiring something from you that it hasn't asked before: your complete, unconditional action. Remember Abraham. When God called him to leave everything familiar, Scripture doesn't say Abraham prayed about it for months. It doesn't say he waited for a committee to approve his decision. Genesis 12:4 tells us simply, "So Abram went, as the Lord had told him." One command, one response, one destiny unlocked. Your entire spiritual inheritance hangs on this same edge right now. You've been given signs. You've received warnings. You've felt that holy disturbance in your spirit for weeks. But signs without steps lead nowhere. How many more divine billboards do you need before you'll move? Type the word yes in the comments right now, not as a casual response, but as a sacred covenant between you and God. Your spiritual agreement that says, I will not miss this 24-hour window of divine decision. What you do in these next hours will echo through the next decade of your life. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being biblically accurate. One decision changed David from a forgotten shepherd to a giant slayer. One moment transformed Paul from a persecutor to an apostle. One step separated the Israelites from 40 more years of wilderness wandering or entering their promised land. Which side of the Jordan are you standing on? Many of you watching right now have been stuck in the same spiritual rut for years, trapped between what God promised and what you're actually experiencing. You attend church faithfully, you pray regularly, but something's missing, and deep down, you know exactly what it is. You haven't fully surrendered to the final step God has been asking you to take. Is it fear holding you back? Is it comfort? Is it what others might think? Whatever it is, it's not worth forfeiting your destiny over. In 1 Kings 18:21, Elijah confronted God's people with these haunting words. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. That same question thunders from heaven to you today. How much longer will you hesitate? This isn't just another spiritual platitude. This is heaven's ultimatum. You stand before the final gate, holding the final key. The scroll with your name on it awaits your signature. Will you sign it with decisive action, or will you walk away wondering what might have been? I've counseled thousands of believers over my 50 years in ministry, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, the most painful regrets come not from the risks people took, but from the divine assignments they refused to accept. Don't misunderstand what's happening here. God isn't threatening you, He's promoting you. He's inviting you to a level of authority, blessing, and kingdom impact that you've only glimpsed in your prayers and dreams. But promotion requires position change. You cannot access new territory without leaving where you currently stand. Right now, someone watching this is arguing with God in their spirit. You're saying, I need more time, I need more resources, I need more confirmation. But Hebrews 3:15 warns us, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Today means today. These 24 hours are your divine appointment for action. David didn't face Goliath with perfect confidence. He faced him with perfect obedience. Your hands may tremble as you take this step, but better to step forward with trembling hands than to stand still with a disobedient heart. The enemy has worked overtime to convince you that someday is spiritual enough. It's not. Someday is the devil's favorite day because it never appears on any calendar. What specific action is God requiring of you in these next 24 hours? You already know. That thing that flashed in your mind the moment I asked, that's it. That's your final step. That's your Red Sea moment, your Jericho battle, your upper room experience waiting to happen. Will you take it, or will you still be standing at the edge when the window closes? Remember, heaven doesn't reward good intentions. Heaven rewards obedience. And obedience delayed is simply disobedience with an excuse attached. The final decision isn't God's, it's yours. He's already decided to bless you. He's already decided to use you. He's already decided to transform everything about your situation. Now he waits for you to decide if you'll allow him to do it. What will your answer be when the 24 hours are up? Have you ever looked around and wondered, why is my path so much more difficult than everyone else's? Why do I face battles that others seem to glide right past? Why does every step forward feel like climbing a mountain, while others appear to float through life on gentle breezes? This isn't your imagination, chosen one. The weight you carry is heavier because what God has entrusted to you is greater. You see, in the divine architecture of heaven, not everyone is assigned the same role. Some are called to be pillars, others are called to be foundations, and the foundation always bears the greatest weight. For we are God's fellow workers, you are God's field, God's building. 1 Corinthians 3-9. You're not just a warrior in God's army, you're a spiritual architect. The pressure you feel isn't punishment, it's preparation. The crushing weight isn't meant to destroy you, it's designed to strengthen you, because foundations cannot afford to crumble. Consider Joseph for a moment. Before he ever stood as second in command over Egypt, he endured betrayal by his own brothers, was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. For years it must have seemed like God had abandoned him, but what appeared as punishment was actually positioning. Look at your own life. The relationship that shattered, the financial collapse that left you starting over, the health crisis that brought you to your knees. These weren't random acts of cruelty. They were divine calibrations, shaping you to bear immeasurable weight without breaking. When a bridge is being built, the supports beneath must be tested with pressures far exceeding what they'll normally carry. Why? Because in moments of crisis, they must not fail. That's who you are in God's kingdom. While others crumble under the slightest resistance, you've endured storms that would have destroyed most people, and you're still standing. Doesn't that tell you something about who you really are? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118-22. Have you ever noticed how people instinctively turn to you in crisis? How they seek your wisdom, your strength, your faith when their own has faltered? That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. You are harder to break because you were designed to support others. Your capacity for suffering isn't a curse, it's a calling. Your ability to endure isn't punishment, it's purpose. And tonight, within these next 24 hours, heaven is about to vindicate every tear, every sleepless night, every moment you questioned whether God had forgotten you. Remember Moses? For 40 years, he wandered in obscurity, a prince reduced to a shepherd, his calling seemingly dead. But God wasn't punishing Moses, he was preparing him. Because foundations must be tested over time. For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. Luke 12:48. This is why you've never quite fit in. This is why you've always felt different. Even in rooms full of believers, you were never meant to blend in. You were created to stand out, to stand firm, to become unshakable. The enemy knows this. That's why your attacks have been more severe, more persistent, more personal than what others experience. The forces of darkness don't waste ammunition on those who pose no threat. When David was still a shepherd boy, Goliath didn't challenge him. The giant only rose up when David stepped toward his destiny. Your battles are confirmation of your calling. Think about it. Would Satan deploy his strongest weapons against someone who wasn't dangerous to his kingdom? Would he waste his ammunition on souls who weren't chosen for greatness? Every attack against you is a backhanded compliment. Every obstacle, a reluctant acknowledgement of the power God has placed within you. If you were of the world would love its own. Yet because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. John 15:19. Tonight, as heaven's countdown reaches 0, God is about to reveal why your path has been so steep. The crushing weight you've carried wasn't meant to bury you. It was building your capacity for what's coming next. Think of concrete. When it's first poured, it appears solid, but without pressure, without the weight of construction above it, it never reaches its full strength. The pressure you've endured has been hardening your foundation, preparing you to bear glorious weight without cracking. What if everything you've survived wasn't random suffering, but sacred preparation? What if the next 24 hours reveal that your breaking points were actually your defining points? You've been crushed, not cursed, refined, not rejected, tested, not forgotten. And now, heaven's timer is counting down to your divine vindication. Within the next 24 hours, God's final decision drops. The foundation he's been meticulously preparing in, you will finally support the masterpiece he's always intended to build. Are you ready for the weight of glory that's about to rest upon your shoulders? Are you prepared to understand why your journey had to be harder than everyone else's? Because what comes next will require every ounce of strength heaven has forged in you through fire. In the book of Revelation, a powerful image unfolds. And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's people. Revelation 5-8. Do you understand what this means, chosen one? Every tear you've shed, every midnight prayer you've whispered, every moment you've cried out when no one else was listening, they've all been collected. Your prayers aren't forgotten or floating in the atmosphere. They're sitting in golden bowls before the throne of God Almighty. And tonight, those bowls are full. They're overflowing. Can you feel that shift in your spirit? That's not just emotion, that's divine recognition. The heavenly court has been in session, reviewing your case. Angels have testified, witnesses have been called, evidence has been presented, and God's gavel has struck. Heaven has made a final decision concerning you. This isn't a small matter. This is cosmic justice being rendered in your favor. For too long, you've been overlooked, underestimated, and pushed aside. You've wondered if God even sees you anymore. Let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. Not only has he seen you, he's been building a case for your vindication. When was the last time you truly believed God would fight for you? When did you last expect divine intervention that would leave no doubt who was behind it? The angels in heaven are leaning in right now, watching to see if you'll recognize what's happening. They've heard the verdict already. They know what's been decided. And they're waiting, breath held, to see if you'll step into it or walk away from the greatest opportunity of your life. The verdict is in: promotion. Not just any promotion, but divine elevation that defies human explanation. Jobs that were closed will suddenly open. Relationships that were broken will mysteriously heal. Financial burdens that seemed impossible will find supernatural resolution. Health situations that doctors gave up on will experience divine intervention. But here's the critical part, and I need you to hear this with every fiber of your being. You have exactly 24 hours to respond before this window shuts. This isn't a scare tactic. This is sacred timing. Throughout Scripture, God operated in divine time frames. Noah had a window before the flood. Lot had hours to leave Sodom. Esther had 3 days to approach the king. The Israelites had 1 night to apply the blood to their doorposts. Why 24 hours? Because God is establishing a new covenant with you, and covenant requires response. This is your Red Sea moment, your Jordan River crossing. The waters are parted right now, but they won't stay that way indefinitely. Does that create urgency in your spirit? It should. The enemy has fought so hard to keep you from this moment because he knows what happens when you step through this divine doorway. Think about Daniel, who prayed for 21 days while spiritual warfare raged in the heavenlies. The angel finally broke through and said, "Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them." Daniel 10:12. The battle was won the moment Daniel first prayed, but manifestation required persistence. Your battle was won the moment you first surrendered to God, but your manifestation requires this 24-hour response. What must you do? Position yourself to receive. Step out in radical obedience. Release whatever God is asking you to let go. Pick up whatever He's asking you to carry. The specific instructions are already stirring in your spirit. You know exactly what they are. Some of you are feeling a holy trembling right now. That's the presence of God confirming this word. Some are weeping unexpectedly. That's heaven's touch acknowledging your long-suffering journey. Some feel a supernatural peace washing over you. That's divine assurance that your season of warfare is ending. But understand this, chosen one. Inaction is still a choice. Delay is still a decision. Paralysis by analysis is still rejection of what God is offering. The judge of all creation has reviewed your case. The heavenly hosts have testified on your behalf. The enemy's accusations have been overruled. And the Son of God himself, your advocate, has presented evidence of his blood that speaks a better word. The divine gavel has fallen. The decision is made. Your promotion is decreed. But you have just 24 hours to walk through this open door. After that, the opportunity doesn't disappear forever, but it changes form. The level of ease, the supernatural assistance, the divine momentum, they won't be the same. Heaven is waiting. The angels are watching. God's decision has been rendered. What will yours be? Chosen one. When God's final decision is about to manifest in your life, He doesn't leave you guessing. He sends confirmation after confirmation, signs so personal and precise that only you would recognize them. This isn't random spiritual coincidence. This is divine convergence. How will you know beyond any shadow of doubt that this 24-hour window is specifically for you? Listen carefully, because what I'm about to reveal will silence every question in your spirit. You'll know this message was divinely appointed for you if you've been experiencing an unexplainable heat in your chest as you listen. If tears have welled up without logical reason, if a supernatural stillness has come over your entire being, that's not emotion, that's recognition. Your spirit knows when heaven is speaking directly to you. Have forgotten dreams suddenly resurfaced in recent days? Have you noticed strange patterns repeating, numbers like 111, 222, or 444 appearing everywhere you look? What about people mysteriously exiting your life with no explanation? These aren't coincidences, they're heaven's way of clearing the path for what God is about to do in the next 24 hours. The first undeniable spiritual mark of divine alignment is unexpected isolation. Does this sound familiar? Friends who once stood close have grown distant. Family members seem unable to understand what you're going through. You've felt increasingly alone, not because God has abandoned you, but because He's separating you for a sacred purpose. Remember Elijah? 1 Kings 19 shows us how God isolated him at the brook Cherith before his greatest demonstration of power. Moses spent 40 years in Midian before the burning bush. Jesus himself was led into the wilderness before his ministry began. Your isolation isn't rejection, it's divine protection. It's heaven creating space for what's about to be poured into your life. The second spiritual mark is supernatural intuition that defies all logic. You've known things before they happened. You've felt warnings about people or situations that later proved accurate. You've had thoughts drop into your mind that couldn't possibly have come from your own understanding. Daniel 2:22 declares, "He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him." This heightened spiritual sensitivity isn't coincidence, it's convergence. God has been fine-tuning your spiritual antenna for such a time as this, preparing you to receive the download that's coming in these next 24 hours. Can you see it now? The pieces falling into place, the preparation making perfect sense. The third and most powerful spiritual mark is a sudden awareness of divine timing. You've felt it, haven't you? That unexplainable certainty that something monumental is about to happen. That's not anxiety, that's alignment. That's not fear, that's foreknowledge. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven." Your spirit has been sensing this approaching appointment. You've caught yourself checking the clock at exactly 11:11 or 3:33. You've awakened at the same hour, night after night. Heaven's timepiece is synchronizing with your spirit. These signs aren't appearing to everyone. They're appearing to you, God's chosen one. The heat, the tears, the stillness, the resurfacing dreams, the repeating patterns, the exits and entrances of people, the isolation, the intuition, the divine timing, awareness, all of it converging in this 24-hour window. I need you to understand something profound. What you've been calling coincidence has actually been convergence all along. The seemingly random struggles, the closed doors, the unexpected healings, the divine connections, all of it has been strategically orchestrated for this moment. This is what happened to Esther when Mordecai spoke those immortal words, "Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Esther 4:14. Everything in her life, the beauty treatments, the favor with the king, the position of influence, wasn't random luck. It was divine convergence. Can you feel it? The weight of this truth settling on your spirit, the recognition that heaven has been preparing you all along. In these next 24 hours, dreams you've carried for decades will suddenly accelerate toward manifestation. Prayers that seemed forgotten will receive divine answers. Doors that remained stubbornly shut will swing wide open. But you must be spiritually alert. You must recognize and respond to the signs. You must understand that it wasn't coincidence. It was convergence. As you enter these final hours before God's decision drops, I need to ask you, are you ready to step into the convergence of everything heaven has been preparing? Are you willing to trust the divine timing that's been set in motion since before you drew your first breath? Because what happens next will not just change your circumstances, it will transform your entire destiny. Chosen one, the spiritual countdown has begun. Heaven's clock is ticking, and what unfolds in the next 24 hours will determine whether you enter the promised land or circle the wilderness for another season. This is not a drill. This is the divine ultimatum. Remember the walls of Jericho? For 6 days, nothing visible happened. The Israelites simply walked around those massive barriers, watching, waiting, probably doubting. But on that 7th day, when they completed their 7th circle and released their shout of faith, those impenetrable walls came crashing down in an instant. Joshua 6:20 tells us, "When the people heard the sound of the trumpet, they shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat." Your Jericho moment is here. Your walls of limitation, your barriers of delay, your mountains of impossibility, they're about to face God's divine detonation. But only if you respond correctly in these next 24 hours. Think about Martha in Luke 10, who delayed her divine moment because she was distracted with much serving. Jesus told her plainly, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. That one necessary thing is your response right now, in the next 6 hours. God requires a decision in your heart. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel more ready. 6 hours. What is this decision? It's your unqualified yes to what He's been whispering to your spirit for months, maybe years. That ministry you know you should start. That person you need to forgive. That comfort zone you need to leave. That financial seed you need to sow. I can feel the resistance in some of you right now. You're thinking, but I need more time, more signs, more preparation. Let me ask you something that might sting. How's that been working for you? How many more years will you waste waiting for perfect conditions that never come? In 12 hours, divine confirmation will arrive. For those who made their decision, you'll receive supernatural clarity, not through thunder and lightning, but through that unmistakable inner witness where your spirit and God's spirit align in perfect harmony. Romans 8:16 reminds us, "The Spirit Himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God." This confirmation might come through a phone call you never expected, an email that arrives at just the right moment, a scripture that suddenly illuminates with new meaning, a door that opens where there wasn't even a door before. But those who hesitate, who negotiate with God's timing, who let fear overrule faith, you'll miss the confirmation completely. It will pass like a ship in the night, and you'll never know how close you came to breakthrough. In 24 hours, by this time tomorrow, heaven either moves decisively on your behalf, or it doesn't. This isn't about God's love for you, which never changes. This is about divine timing and spiritual positioning. Your obedience creates the runway for God's supernatural power to land in your life. Remember Mordecai's sobering words to Queen Esther when she hesitated to act. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. God's purposes will be fulfilled with or without you. The only question is whether you'll be positioned to receive what He's releasing, or watching from the sidelines as it flows to someone else who said yes when you said wait. I'm reminded of a godly widow I knew in Manhattan. For decades, she felt called to minister to broken women, but always found reasons to delay. When my kids are grown, when I have more Bible knowledge, when I'm not so afraid. At 83, with tears streaming down her wrinkled face, she confessed to me, I waited too long. My body can't do what my heart always knew to do. Don't let that be your testimony. Please, I beg you, don't let that be your story. Your yes tonight activates a generational shift. What you set in motion in these 24 hours won't just change your life. It will echo through your bloodline for generations to come. Your children's children will either benefit from your obedience or inherit the consequences of your delay. The blessing or the burden, the promise or the pain, the abundance or the lack, it all hinges on these next 24 hours. The Israelites stood at Kadesh Barnea, peering into their promised land. 10 spies said, "We can't." 2 said, "With God, we can." And an entire generation died in the wilderness because they hesitated when decision time came. What will your answer be? When the clock strikes midnight tomorrow, where will you stand? Among those who seized their moment, or those who let it slip away? God's final decision drops tonight, and your response in these 24 hours will either activate heaven's armies on your behalf, or signal that you're not yet ready for what He's prepared. The countdown has begun. 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. What will you do with this divine wake-up call? Right now, you're facing the most critical spiritual crossroads of your life. Can you feel it? That tension in your spirit, that divine pressure building beneath your faith. This isn't just another message. This is heaven's ultimatum. And in the next 24 hours, God's final decision will be revealed. But here's what many miss: this moment isn't just about His decision, it's about your response. Let me speak directly to what you're feeling right now. That hesitation gripping your heart, that voice whispering, wait, or maybe tomorrow. That's not wisdom speaking, that's warfare. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him. And right now, you're standing at the Red Sea of hesitation with Pharaoh's armies closing in behind you. Exodus 14:13 tells us Moses declared to the terrified Israelites, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." They faced the impossible ocean before them, destruction behind them, just like you. Right now, heaven has moved mountains to get this message to you tonight. But hell is counting on your silence. Hell is banking on your delay. The enemy knows that if he can just keep you paralyzed for 24 more hours, the window God has opened will begin to close. You're feeling fear right now? Good. That's confirmation. Because the enemy only attacks destiny, not distractions. He doesn't waste ammunition on those who pose no threat to his kingdom. Your fear is proof of your calling. You're second-guessing yourself, wondering if this is really for you. That's how you know it's real. When God spoke to Gideon in Judges 6:12, calling him a mighty warrior, Gideon's first response was doubt. How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest, and I am the least in my family. Sound familiar? God's greatest assignments always feel too big for us. I know what you're wrestling with. You've stepped out before, and the waters didn't part. You've trusted before, and the breakthrough didn't come. You've believed before, and the promise seemed to fail. But hear me clearly, previous disappointments were preparation, not proof of God's absence. Job 23:10 declares, "When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold." Every delay was developing you. Every setback was strengthening you. Every no was navigating you to this precise moment of divine opportunity. Look at your life honestly. The unexplainable connections, the improbable open doors, the dreams that won't die despite every logical reason they should. Those aren't coincidences, they're coordinates. God has been positioning you for such a time as this. Some of you watching right now can feel your heart pounding, your spirit stirring, your soul recognizing truth. That physical reaction isn't emotional manipulation, it's spiritual recognition. Your spirit knows before your mind catches up. But I must warn you, this is the exact moment where most believers forfeit their breakthrough. Right at the edge, right at the brink, right when God's promise is within reach, they retreat into comfort. They choose the familiar pain over the unfamiliar promise. You're not standing at a casual crossroads of preference. You're standing at a covenant crossroads of destiny. This isn't a decision out of comfort, it's a decision out of covenant. When God cut covenant with Abraham in Genesis 15, animals were split in two, and God himself passed between the pieces. That's the gravity of this moment. The disciples faced a similar battle for response. John 6:66 tells us, "From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him." Why? Because when truth demanded decision, they chose retreat. When covenant required sacrifice, they preferred comfort. But then Jesus turned to the 12 and asked the question, "Heaven is asking you tonight. You do not want to leave too, do you?" And Peter's response must become yours. "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life." My brother, my sister, my friend, the next 24 hours will determine the next 24 years. The battle isn't for God's decision, it's already been made. The battle is for your response. Will you be like Moses, who raised his staff over impossible waters, or the Israelites who wanted to return to slavery because freedom was too frightening? The enemy is whispering that tomorrow will do, that you need more time, more signs, more certainty. But Hebrews 3:15 thunders across time. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Heaven has cast its vote, hell has cast its vote, and now earth is waiting for yours. The waters before you won't part until your feet get wet. Your decision doesn't follow God's miracle, it precedes it. Your move activates heaven's response. So what will it be? Will you stand paralyzed between your past and your promise? Or will you step forward in holy confidence, knowing that the God who brought you to this Red Sea is the same God who will make a way through it? The battle for your response ends tonight, and your life will never be the same again. It's the razor's edge moment, that critical threshold where your eternity hangs in the balance. The next 24 hours aren't just another day on your calendar. They form the divine crucible where your true character will be revealed. Not to God he already knows, but to you. Let me speak plainly to your spirit, right now. Heaven's clock is ticking with purpose, and I've been instructed to show you exactly what happens in the next 24 hours. There are 3 paths before you, 3 responses that will determine everything. And I mean everything. The first response? Paralysis disguised as peace. Some of you will hear this urgent message, and something inside will whisper, "Stay calm, don't rush. God isn't pressuring you." But listen carefully, beloved. That isn't the Holy Spirit speaking. That's fear wearing spiritual clothing. That's the enemy offering you a counterfeit peace when God is calling for divine action. Remember the rich young ruler in Mark 10, when Jesus told him to sell everything and follow him? The young man went away sad. He chose his comfortable paralysis over courageous obedience, and Scripture never mentions him again. Gone from the biblical narrative because he missed his 24-hour window. Can you afford to disappear from your destiny story? Can you live with being a footnote when God designed you to be a chapter? The second response I see coming? Spiritual procrastination cloaked in false wisdom. This is more dangerous because it sounds so reasonable. I just need more confirmation. I'll pray about it overnight. I'll wait for a clearer sign. But Proverbs 29:1 warns us, "Whoever remains stiff-necked after many rebukes will suddenly be destroyed without remedy." Some of you have already received 7 confirmations, but you keep asking for an 8th. Some of you have heard God's voice clearly, but you pretend you need more clarity. This isn't discernment, it's disobedience wearing a spiritual disguise. King Saul lost his throne because he waited when God said, "Move." Queen Esther nearly missed her divine assignment until Mordecai reminded her that perhaps she had come to royal position for such a time as this. Her 24-hour decision changed history. What history are you preventing by postponing your obedience? What breakthrough are you blocking by spiritualizing your fear? But there's a third response that heaven celebrates, a response that changes everything. The immediate action taker, who moves when God speaks. Their testimony isn't, "I waited until I was certain." Their testimony is, "I obeyed while I was still afraid." Like Peter stepping out of the boat, like Abraham leaving Ur, like David running toward Goliath. They didn't have perfect clarity, they had perfect obedience. And within 48 hours, hear me clearly, within 48 hours of their decision, their lives exploded with supernatural intervention. The same explosion awaits you if you choose immediate obedience, not tomorrow, not after more confirmation, not when you feel ready, now, today, within these 24 hours. But what if I'm wrong? Your mind protests. Let me answer with a question. Would you rather explain to God why you moved when He might not have called, or explain why you stayed when He definitely did? Joshua and Caleb saw the same giants as the other spies, but they alone entered the promised land. Why? Because in their critical 24-hour window, they chose courage over comfort, faith over fear, action over analysis. Your response in these next 24 hours determines your reality for the next 24 years. I don't say this to pressure you. I say this because it's the spiritual truth that many ministers are too afraid to tell you. Delay isn't wisdom sometimes. It's spiritual disobedience in disguise. Sometimes what we call waiting on God is actually God waiting on us. Moses stood at the Red Sea with the Egyptian army closing in. Do you know what God said? "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on." Sometimes more prayer isn't the answer. Movement is. Look at your life right now. Look at the dreams still deferred, the promises still pending, the breakthroughs still blocked. Could it be that God has been waiting for you to make the 24-hour decision that unleashes everything? I'm telling you with prophetic certainty, there are angels assigned to your obedience, waiting with spiritual resources that can only be released when you move. The 24-hour test isn't about perfection, it's about direction. It's not about getting everything right, it's about getting started right now. For those who recognize this divine moment, who feel the holy urgency in your spirit, write in the comments, "I choose courage over comfort," not as a social media gesture, but as a holy declaration, as your line in the spiritual sand, as your covenant, that when God's final decision drops tonight, you'll be found faithful, moving, ready. The clock is ticking. Your destiny awaits. Who will you become by this time tomorrow? Have you ever wondered why your battles have been so intense? Why the enemy seems to target you specifically? Have you asked yourself, "Lord, why is my struggle so much harder than others around me?" There's a reason, and it's far more glorious than you've imagined. You were born with an invisible crown. That's why the pressure felt like war. That's why the attacks came with such precision, such ruthless determination. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on those who pose no threat. Look at Joseph in Scripture, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned, and forgotten. Why such relentless opposition? Because an invisible crown rested upon his head, long before Pharaoh ever placed one there. The enemy saw what his brothers couldn't see. Your rejection wasn't a stop sign, it was redirection into greatness. Think about it, chosen one. The pain you've endured, the betrayals that cut so deep, the doors that slammed in your face. They weren't random. They were calculated attempts to stop you from discovering who you really are. Every royal carries a target. Consider Viola Davis, who once said, "I was the kind of poor where I knew right away I had less than everyone around me." She faced rejection after rejection, told she wasn't pretty enough, wasn't light-skinned enough, wasn't enough. Yet today, she stands as one of only 18 people in history to win the Emmy, Oscar, Tony, and Grammy Awards. Why? Because she carried an invisible crown that rejection couldn't remove. And what about Harriet Tubman? Born into slavery, beaten until her skull was fractured, hunted with a $40,000 bounty on her head. Yet she returned to slave territory 19 times, freeing over 300 people. The enemy knew her royal identity before she did. That's why the opposition was so fierce. Do you understand what I'm telling you? The brutality of your battle is direct evidence of the authority you carry. In the next 24 hours, God is removing the veil. What was invisible is becoming visible. The crown you were born with is about to be seen. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. 2 Corinthians 4:17. Did you catch that? Your troubles weren't meaningless. They were achieving something. They were weight training, preparing you to carry the weight of glory God always intended for you. Look at David, a shepherd boy who defeated Goliath. Before the victory came the lion, the bear, the years in caves running for his life. The crown was there all along, invisible to others but fully seen by God. The enemy attacked what heaven had already anointed. Why do you think Serena Williams faced such unprecedented criticism throughout her career? She wasn't just winning tennis matches, she was redefining what power looks like. She carried an invisible crown that threatened entire systems of limitation. Today, I'm telling you with absolute prophetic certainty, in the next 24 hours, what's been hidden is being revealed. The warfare was preparation for your coronation. That diagnosis that should have destroyed you, it couldn't, because royalty was in your bloodline. That financial collapse that should have ended you, it couldn't, because your crown carried kingdom resources. That betrayal that should have left you bitter, it couldn't, because royal blood flows with forgiveness. Can you feel it? The atmosphere shifting around you. Right now, as I speak these words, that's heaven's recognition of who you've been all along. For too long, you've seen yourself through the lens of your struggles. You've defined yourself by your wounds, your setbacks, your delays. But that ends tonight. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. 1 Peter 2-9. You weren't fighting just to survive. You were fighting because something in you refused to deny your true identity. In these next 24 hours, God's final decision is dropping. The invisible becomes visible. The crown that others ignored is now glowing in the spirit. What you couldn't explain to others about yourself, what you sensed but couldn't prove, what you felt but couldn't articulate, it's all being confirmed in this divine moment. The brutal battle wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It wasn't God's absence, it was His investment. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of standing alone, they were the price of carrying royalty in a world that wasn't ready for your reign. If you can feel this truth resonating in your spirit, if you're finally understanding why your journey has been so different from others, comment "crowned" right now. Not as a statement of pride, but as a declaration of divine recognition, as your acknowledgement that the battle makes sense now, as your agreement with heaven's perspective of who you've been all along. The invisible crown is being revealed, and in the next 24 hours, everything changes. The warfare ends, the coronation begins. Are you ready for what comes next? Because the crown you were born with is about to change everything about how you live. My friends, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below with "crowned" if this message spoke to your spirit. Share your prayer requests, your testimonies, your questions. This community is here for you. And if you know someone else fighting a brutal battle, someone who needs to understand why their journey has been so difficult, share this message with them. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can offer is the reminder that we're not alone. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Your presence here matters more than you know. If you haven't already, please subscribe to join our family of believers. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another divine appointment like this one. Remember, you weren't born just to survive the battle. You were born to wear the crown. And in these next 24 hours, everything changes. Go in peace, walk in power, and live as the royalty you've always been.